We have just been hearing from Eddie Howe, Newcastle manager Eddie Howe, and he was asked about England. This cropped up this morning in the last few moments, and the fact that Eddie, perceivably, is one of the favourites to take over from Southgate if it was to go wrong for Southgate in Qatar. Have a listen.
Well, what I say to that is I think Gareth's done an incredible job. I really do. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I've been lucky enough to go in and see him work and spend time with him. I've got a lot of time for him and for Steve Holland and his team there. I think they've been amazing for England. And I think you have to remember where England was when he took over and what he's done for the country. I'd never say never. I never say no. It's not something that I'd ever be interested in, but certainly not in the short term. It's not on my radar at all. It's all Newcastle and investing in trying to make this team the best I can.
Yeah, you might be a bit young for it at the minute.
Well, I've always said I love the day-to-day coaching. I love being with my players on the training ground. And international football, you get that taken away for long periods. And at this moment in my life, that's not something I want to do.
You know, number one, Stuart, should he be asked? Number two, should he answer it?
I think if he's doing an interview personally away from Newcastle United and he's not sat there with his Newcastle and somebody puts that question to him, it's fair game. A general overview about his whole career. Eddie's a very humble manager and a very good manager. The last thing he'd want is a question about England. The last thing any club manager wants leading into a Premier League weekend is a question about a national team. It's of no relevance whatsoever. And all you're doing is batting it away. I think, A, it's poor journalism. The timing's poor, and credit to Eddie, he batted it away as it was, you know what I mean? And for me, England don't need a change. They need stability, and they've had stability over the last 5, 6, 7 years with Gareth.
I agree with Stuart on that, and to be honest, I would go in and ask what I think should be asked, but there's no relevance to it at this moment, Martin. Southgate's in charge of England, going to Qatar, end of. Yeah. What they do in Qatar is what they do in Qatar. Eddie Howe's not even in a conversation about England.
No, but
yet he entertained the question.
Come on. You're mischievous on this show, aren't you? So he's in a press conference. I don't know who it is.
Mischievous?
Probably somebody from the Red Tops is just throwing a little question in, trying to link him to a job that... he's got enough on his plate right now at Newcastle.
Yeah, there's no relevance to it, though. No, that's what I'm saying.
No, but I suppose he's trying to be dignified. I mean, when you before I heard the interview, I was kind of like, he shouldn't even be answering that question. Just shut it right down. I mean, I'm not sure that I'd want to be following Gareth Southgate into that job. Let's say let's just say for a moment it doesn't go well in the winter, and I think it will actually. I think it will go well. But who's going to follow that act to get into a final, to get into a semi-final in two concurrent competitions?
Martin, if it doesn't go well for England and Southgate in Qatar, he's out of job, and then it would be a good time to follow him.
Well, I don't know though. He goes into it, doesn't he? Doesn't that insulate him a little bit? It's the previous successes that he's had, how dignified, how well he's managed.
I would say it counts for not a lot going into this.
Well, big calls. I mean, if we're looking at France and we're looking at the German teams, look at France. Hardly won a game since they won the World Cup last time.
England are winless.
Disastrous in the summer of Euros.
England are winless in 6.
Yes, because they were playing way into the end of June.
Fan opinions already changed. We've seen it on the show. 4 games at the
end of June. So yeah, there's a problem. He finds himself almost unique situation with trying to play Maguire at the moment and Shaw, who don't even get games in their club sides, but they're our best players in those positions, or deemed to be by the manager. So it's not an easy one. He's got to manage it as best as possible, but that's the same manager who got us to a final and a semi-final. So I think we should step back and give him the confidence he needs.
Yeah. I mean, that's all. I mean, we're not... you guys probably will be cheerleaders for England, but that's not our job. At the moment, they're winless in 6, Stuart. If they go there and stink the place out, he's had it, and it's a great time for someone else to come in.
Once again, I disagree, because I probably see, like Martin does, the bigger picture. The bigger picture is probably England and the coaching staff and the backroom staff have probably got the best connection with the Premier League clubs that supply their players than they've ever had, because of Gareth being a statesman that he is. We've got a manager that cares about the whole English pyramid, not just the little peak of it, which is the England senior team.
I agree.
And in this 10-year period where St George's Park, our training facility, has been built, has been the most successful period of English football. Now, the women are European champions who train there. The under-17s have been successful. The under-19s have been successful. The under-20s have been successful. And as Martin rightly pointed out, the senior team have probably continually backed up a really good tournament by going a step further both on the world stage and European stage.
But it's about time you win something, isn't it?
Well, we're short of getting our hands on a trophy. But for me, if I'm looking at that,
but that's the
over
most
that
important
10-year
thing.
period.
Well, I don't want to interrupt you. That's
The
the most
build.
important. England fans out there, London Bridge, if you stop and talk to any of them this morning, they're not bothered about St George's Park.
Yeah, but what we tried to do many years ago is just fix the top of the pyramid. You know what I mean? Wenger talked about building a house with foundations, walls, and then putting the roof on is the final piece. England, for prior to this, probably 10 years, have been trying to put a roof on with no foundations, you know, which isn't workable. So now at least they've got a structure, they've got a figurehead that's probably got the same kudos as Alf Ramsey when he won the World Cup, I think, with Gareth, because I think I'm looking at a figurehead, and listen, I understand that I'm a little bit biased because he's a friend of mine, but I see what I see.
Of course.
I see a fella that's totally unselfish and wants the best for English football, not for Gareth Southgate. And for me,
I agree.
I would take that all day long.
I mean, anytime I've met Gareth, extremely humble man who's devoted to the job that he's in. Having said that, there was an element of the English support only in the last few days who were saying serious doubts about him.
Well, of course, you're always going to get people who say that. I was at the game the other night and going into various boxes. Some people have that in their mind that, you know, he got it in strange circumstances. Did he actually deserve to get the job in the first place? And they still can't get out of their heads. I'm saying, well, look at what the man's achieved since he's been there, and we need to get used to that. It's Jim. Really, it's the next step now is to try and win something. Where I'm a little bit. I like to watch the game now and look at tactics. It's this changing, this flip-flopping from a back four to a back three. So we kind of got to the Euros final, the 2020 Euro final we played in 2021, and we then changed from a back four to a back five in the final itself. And I thought that was a backward step. I'm not sure why we did that. We played with a back five to get to the World Cup and changed, and we've just had a recent qualifications to the World Cup playing a back four. So we keep changing from one to the other. And I would have thought that the England manager by now would have a better pathway in his mind of what he wants to play, the way that he feels is going to be successful. And we keep changing. That concerns me. Is that because the players he feels can't control the games well enough and he has to play a five? You've talked about West Ham doing something similar against the blue chip teams in the Premier League. But I don't know. With a four, I thought we looked way better.
Right, here's a question to both of you. England expected to win the group. Agreed?
Of course.
In Qatar.
Yeah,
expected to win the group
yes.
and advance. Say they go out at the next hurdle. Will England fans have Southgate for the next 2 years?
I think there'll be question marks asked. We've seen it already. We've seen one or two people potentially who they are or whatever. They obviously make statements about we lost the last game, get him out, you know, get the next man in. There's a much, much bigger picture in football nowadays. Even from a tactical point of view, you know, people say, who's picking, what's his first 11 and all this. The game isn't about the first 11 anymore, you know. As we saw the other night at Wembley when Saka and Mount come on.
Yeah, very
It's
well.
about how you utilise your bench, the whole squad situation. It's about maybe changing your tactical approach during matches as well as going into certain games.
I think the
It's
danger
very
is
fluid.
what we're going through at the moment, though, is an undercurrent of dissatisfaction that we're now seeing a little bit in the media. And that's the first time that Gareth Southgate's had to endure that. And it builds. And in the past,
it's hardly surprising,
it's been
is it?
in the past, it's been disrespectful. Jim, you say that. England have qualified for
Winless in
They've
6.
been qualified for a World Cup.
Winless
haven't they?
in your last
Yeah, but
6.
Italy haven't done that, have they? Now,
No, true.
I was in France last
But
week.
Italy won the
I was in
Euros.
France last week. No panic with Deschamps. You know, by the way, Deschamps the manager, and they're all believing in him.
Yeah, but you just mentioned Italy. You mentioned.
But if you look at the number of games that they're not winning, they lost 2-0 to Denmark. They lost 2-0 to Denmark. You know, look at the team that they're picking from.
Italy won the Euros. France won the World Cup.
Yeah, but France were a disappointment in the Euros just gone, weren't they? Very disappointed.
You say to any
went
England
out.
fan, if it disappoints you in Qatar, St George's Park, the bigger picture, they're not interested in that. They want England to
very
win now.
Eloquently
and
constructing.
I understand what you're saying.
It's about training
Of course.
ground. It's about training facilities. It's about building for the future, winning the World Cup under 17s.
Winning.
Yes, Jim, that's something England are doing. Should be proud of. Okay, the icing on the cake is the the first team.
But
and
the problem is they're not winning
there's
anything.
problems right now. No, they're not. They haven't won anything since '66, but they're getting damn close to it.
We're getting closer as we've ever been because the structure's in place. Because young players like Foden are stepping onto the pitch with an England senior shirt, knowing what it's like to win at younger age groups and be world and European champions. You know, you can't hold sway on that. That is massive. To walk out of a tunnel. When I used to play, we'd won nothing. So when I'm lining up against whoever it may be, say you're playing Brazil or Germany, and you look across the tunnel and there's a world champion next to you. There's no world champion in the row that I'm walking out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's world champions now, and our youngsters know what it's like to win things. If he gets his hands on the World Cup, which I hope Gareth does, we'll all be looking back and saying, I've seen the journey. I've seen the building process. Don't get milky on us now, Jim. Come on.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.